So we're ready?
We're ready.
Welcome to tonight's meeting, November 20th, 2023, City Council Study Session. City Council reports.
I was out sick last week, so no reports.
Councilor Emmons.
I had North Metro Arts Alliance on Thursday, and they were just wrapping up their this year's events and looking to next year. And then they're also looking forward to who will be their next liaison. As this meeting was my last that I attended, I also, or would attend, I also forwarded the council one of our North Metro Arts Alliance board members is also a member of our other committees, council committees, Justin Davis, and he is doing a play in Broomfield, Christmas Carol, I think it was, and just forwarded that to the council if you all want to attend that. Otherwise, there wasn't much on the agenda. But they meet the third Thursday of every month. So just in time for choosing for who would be their next liaison. Yeah.
Councilor Baker.
Nope.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I attended with the mayor the Citizen Academy graduation for the Police Citizen Academy. That was a lot of fun. Everybody, as always, enjoyed the program that was into it. And the only other thing I had that I was going to ask council about was if, and obviously there's only, I know the mayor can't, so Councilor Gramella, maybe you could do the CNR on the 7th.
What time is that?
6:30. No, 6 to 8.
What, I'm sorry, what is?
At the airport round table.
Oh, okay.
I have a conflict, and the mayor I know has something that night, so I was gonna see if I can't get somebody to cover it, I'll go, but I was hoping that I could get somebody to cover it.
What's the date, the 7th?
The 7th of
Thursday.
December.
I think I should be able to.
And is it virtual and or in person?
They usually have both. You usually could do either.
I can do it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I will let them know so that they make sure to get
Okay.
you, or maybe if staff can make sure that Councilor Gramella also gets the link when they send it to us.
Councilor Miller?
So I was gonna give a quick update. I went to Dr. Cog last week, sorry, what day is it? And I think they did an overall update on traffic congestion in the area. And it was definitely increasing over time, and so there's a need still for us to work regionally to reduce the trips, because they're just gonna continue to increase per person. But I think the one thing I wanted to bring up was they also give a presentation on active modes, and they're going to be doing an active mode plan for the region and through Dr. Cog, and with it develop some recommendations on what we could be doing for accommodating multiple modes within our communities. As part of that, they did this crash analysis, and it was just pretty telling in terms of even the speeds of 20 miles per hour can be deadly for pedestrians, and they've had all of these overall crash data. But I was wondering, as they move into their plan process, which is starting over the next year, if we had any crash data information that we could give to them that has been synthesized through our transportation, and master plan, or any of our more recent planning efforts, maybe the comp plan. The crash data that they had went through only 2019, and so it doesn't reflect what's happening now. And so I don't know if we have anything that's more up to date, but I did offer that up to Dr. Cog, that they should be working with municipalities who have been collecting this and might have this information. So they would be open to getting it. And
Sure, we can do that.
Counselor Azadi?
No, nothing.
Thank you. And as Mayor Pro Tem said, Citizen Academy graduation is always fun to hear who got tased, who didn't, who laid down, who stood up, who fell down. It was a great group. And that night was also the Youth Advisory Panel evening, so I split my time and went over there, or came here for that. And they were meeting with the Parks and Rec Board and going over the strategic plan and stuff. So they were totally engaged. So I walked in, saw what they were doing, and walked back out and went home. So, because they were well into it by the time I got here. So, City Manager, do you want to go ahead and do, I don't know, when we need to do the executive session for?
Oh, we're gonna do that after this first presentation.
Okay.
Okay, so if we could go to the next slide. And so, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, we have some updates here. First of all, I wanted to talk about the housing needs assessment. And that's a draft update at this point, but they've been posted for input. And so we'll have a community review discussion mid-December of those findings. Still trying to work out some of those details, but we'll get that out next Monday at the latest. And also, just for the council's perspective, the final housing needs assessment will be given to the council first quarter of 2024 for review and acceptance. So that's kind of just a quick update on that. Also, Uplands, in conjunction with the city staff, held a quarterly neighborhood update meeting. And that was something that we wanted to do to get those set on a quarterly basis. They're at Crown Point Academy, at least for this next year. The one we held was this past Thursday from about 5:30 to 6:45. If I remember the data points, we had 13 members of the public in person and another 4 that were online, and a handful of staff from the city, Uplands, and also from Crown Point. And so the development team on both sides, city and Uplands, provided kind of this is where we're at currently, and then fielded questions. Good discussion, lots of questions, and so thought it was beneficial overall. Just FYI, the next one of these will be February 22nd at Crown Point, same time, 5:30 to 6:30. We make sure that we keep that on the schedule. But a good first meeting, and hopefully we'll get some more members of the community there as more things start happening on the Uplands property. Next slide. Some Westy wins. If you haven't been down to the Armed Forces Tribute Garden, we've got 2 new statues down there. So depicted on the upper left is the World War I code talker that is representing the Army's history. That was dedicated on November 10th at our Veterans Day ceremony. And then on the upper right is a modern-day Navy SEAL pictured with a service dog and representing the U.S. Navy. Our next statue that will be delivered will be the Marine Recon Soldier with the service dog, not the Navy SEAL with the service dog, I'm sorry. But that will be installed in time for our Armed Forces Day event on May 18th this next spring. Just a basic plug for the council and certainly the community is we have a new branch of service, the U.S. Space Force, that wasn't envisioned when the Armed Forces Tribute Garden was conceptualized and planned. And so if anybody has any good ideas for how we incorporate the Space Force, we're certainly interested. And that was my idea, Counselor, is something that maybe is over the tribute garden from one side to the other. So we're gonna have to think about that. And I know our Parks, Rec, and Library teams are already thinking about how we're gonna figure that one out. But a nice addition to our offerings at the Armed Forces Tribute Garden. And then for Westy Fest, I thought this was a good news story, especially given that we've had some interest in composting and recycling and things like that. But this year's Westy Fest was the most sustainable one yet, with 85% of the waste collected was diverted from going to the landfill. And so we partnered with a group called Scraps Compost, 820 pounds of compost, 340 pounds of recycling, 32 pounds of candy wrappers. The dentists are gonna love that. But with only 210 pounds of trash actually going to the landfill. The use of something called an R.Cup, which is a reusable beverage container service, helped eliminate about 4,000 single-use cups, resulting in 54 pounds of waste diverted. So, doing the right things, certainly in Westminster and specifically at Westy Fest. So we'll look at expanding that and seeing how we can continue to grow that effort. Next slide. Some things to know, obviously, a holiday week, so administrative offices will be closed in observance of Thanksgiving this Thursday and this Friday. And our next city council meeting will be Monday night, November 27th, 6:30 p.m. Here in council chambers. Next slide. So this evening, we had 3 information-only items. The first was an air quality monitoring at Rocky Flats and an update on the Greenway Trail. And second was city council after action review of the 2024 budget process. We also had one that is provided under the auspices of the Westminster Housing Authority, and that was just a budget update for your information purposes. And if there are any questions on that, the staff is here to answer questions. Next slide. And then, as always, for the community, we want to be accessible. We want to be responsive, transparent, and certainly accountable. Please reach out and contact us if you have questions, if you have good ideas, if you have feedback, if you have things that just make no sense. Please give us a call. We want to answer. The phone number to my office is listed there, 303-658-2006. Email mfreitag@westminsterco.gov. And as always, you can follow us on X, you can like us on Facebook, check us out on Instagram, or ring our bell at Nextdoor. Pending any questions, that's all I have this evening.
Counselor Baker?
If I'm not mistaken, well, the code talkers were really Native American peoples in World War II.
We had both, World War I and World War II.
Wasn't World War I all done with field wire?
Not that I'm aware of.
So we had walkie-talkies?
We had radios. What version of a radio, I'm not sure, but we had radios.
Counselor Namella?
Yeah, I had a question about just the budget process. I know I sent that over earlier today, but maybe I sound like a broken record. I'm just trying to figure out when we'll see you had a schedule from what we did this past year. When do you anticipate having a schedule that's more responsive to our SWAT?
And I replied to your email. I don't know if you've had a chance to see that, but during that discussion, we talked about reconvening in March of 2024. We have the new council and laying out what that schedule would look like. So right now, we're looking at March, and bottom line, January and February, because of holidays, there aren't many study session opportunities, so it's pretty limited, so it really pushes us to early March. But March will plan that.
If there's gonna be enough time, I'm just, because if we have any input on the schedule, then it's one thing to be told how it's gonna happen, but to
No, we're
have some
certainly
input on
selecting
it.
or seeking your input, for certain. I mean, we wouldn't normally begin the budget process from a staff perspective in great detail until June, July anyway, so we got lots of time to work budget kind of parameters.
Thank you. Sorry I didn't.
Nope, no worries.
Counselor Azadi, did you have any questions?
No,
Anyone else?
Okay, all right, so for the big piece this evening is,
Sorry, I had one more. I wrote it down, didn't look at it. The housing needs assessment, the findings, I said there's gonna be a meeting in
Mid-December, yes.
Mid-December. Is that with us or is that just with the community?
the community. So that's a community feedback session, and then the results of that study coming back to the council in Q1.
Will the presentation be available for the council to see?
Oh, absolutely, sure.
Or from December into?
We can share that with you.
That'd be great.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Yep.
Are we
All
doing
right.
this first or the executive session?
I'm tracking the presentation first and the executive session next. Am I missing that?
We have two executive sessions.
Right, yeah, Sheridan Green right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So while the team moves down here, Mayor Pro Tem Councilors, this is really follow-up based upon our last meeting with the council, which was on September 25th. We had presented to the council at that time a recommendation to demolish the building itself and return the area or restore the area as parkland. The council directed us to go back to the community and have a conversation about some private uses and make sure that we were on point with our recommendation for returning the area to parkland. And so we did that on 10/10, which was attended by well over 100 people. And so with that, I will turn it over to Economic Development Director Kimball. So please, Lindsay.
Great. Thank you, City Manager Freitag. Good evening, Lindsay Kimball, Director of Economic Development. And tonight I am here to present on the reuse of the Sheridan Green Elementary School site. I have with me here tonight John Burke, Seth Plass, Paul Knipple, Tomas Herrera-Mischler, and John McConnell to provide us support in their areas of respective expertise. But I also want to thank everyone who may not be present tonight from city staff, because there were dozens of people who have helped with this, and we definitely want to show our appreciation to them. That includes departments and divisions, including Parks, Rec, and Libraries, Facilities, IT, Police Department, Community Development, Finance, Budget, Public Works and Utilities, and Communications, who have helped us with this important project. So thank you to them. I also want to give a special thank you to Heather Cronenberg, who has already is out there braving the holiday craziness and travel season. So good luck to her. But she couldn't be here tonight. But I just want to say she really has been the star quarterback of this effort, and would like to give her a special recognition. In summary, the last time we were here before you on September 25th, staff received instruction that you would like us to go back to the community and do one more gathering, do one more public meeting of input and feedback on 4 concepts that you all instructed us on. And so we went ahead, we did that quickly on October 10th. We held the meeting, we reviewed the concepts, and we received the feedback, so we'll be going over that tonight. And would like to share up front, of course, the staff recommendation is to continue with the concept of a park expansion there. We believe, in addition to all of the items that we'll talk about, time is truly of the essence for this site. It's been unoccupied since the last class was held before the summer. We've engaged now in almost 6 months of public engagement. And we really, we've been fighting a battle against broken windows, vandalism, and other nuisances at the site. And I know our PD has gotten those calls, and we've responded quickly to make those repairs, so no further intrusions into the building occur. But we really do believe time is of the essence, and we'd like to get moving with something quickly. And we believe tonight that we have a good solution that will be compatible with the community, fiscally responsible, and a timely, executable option for us. So just a quick grounding in the site and vicinity. Of course, this is right in the middle of Sheridan Green neighborhood, just north of City Park, just about a quarter mile, half a mile maybe, or so as the crow flies, walking distance to City Park. And you see Sheridan, 112th, and US 36 to get some orientation there, as well as the Weston is that larger structure in the center there, south of the site. And you can see in the larger site aerial, most of the paved and south of that circle area, that is all what was the former school board property, which now, of course, on September 1st transferred and is now back in possession of the city. And we have gone through an extensive due diligence process with the building inspections, title work, all kinds of investigations. Our folks, our consultants have done an extensive building assessment, as well as our facilities folks who were greatly helpful. We put together some budget just for keeping the building dark, basically. So a dark building costs about $170,000 a year. And there's major building repairs that are needed, as we've discussed, which include a new roof. There is no air conditioning in the building right now. There are swamp coolers that are at the end of their life, a boiler at the end of its life. So those are costly items, along with electrical. You know, it's the original electrical panel that still has the 1985-86 sticker on it, tag. So those are original. In addition, that you would need to add fire suppression systems, i.e. a sprinkler system, to be up to code if you change the use from a school, as well as there's various ADA compliance modifications that would need to be made for depending on the use. So there is a range there, because depending on what you would use the school for, it would just dictate what those interior modifications would be for the school. But there are some basic ones that we know that any use would have to do, and those are the systems, the roof, HVAC, electrical. There are some plumbing issues. You know, it's just, it's a 40-year-old building, and it's several systems are at the end of their life. Again, that public engagement process has been very robust. We began in June with an ice cream social. We had amazing attendance. Thank you to the community for showing up to that. 180 people. That was really more a free-form event, very conversational. There wasn't a set structured agenda. We had tables of information where people could leave their thoughts and talk to staff, and also reminisce and share their memories of the school. So that's a picture of our Westminster Historic Society representatives there, telling some stories from Westminster history, but also collecting. So they collected a lot of memorabilia, including some yearbooks from Sheridan Green from the 90s and things like that that are really cool to look at. And hopefully the plan is to make that part of either a history display of the community, or incorporate somehow into that new park to celebrate the history of Sheridan Green and what was there. And there also was a second public meeting held in August that was more structured. There were presentations presenting the 4 concepts at that time that we had. We also had an exit survey, we had an online survey, and over 200 people attended that. So we thought we were doing good with the ice cream social, and then we broke the attendance record again in August, which is a great testament to the collaboration we've had with our comms team to get the word out, sending out paper flyers, email informations, building that contact list, and utilizing everything down to the marquee board in front of the school, and getting access to that and the key and the letters, and putting that information up there. So thank you to them. And third public meeting was held in October 10th. That was following the meeting with this body, and with your guidance to hold that meeting and present 4 revised concepts that we will go through. And we again we answered questions. We had an extensive question and answer session. We also received comments via the exit survey, and we also had an online survey. For some people, you know, they don't feel comfortable speaking up in the meeting, or even maybe filling out the survey and handing it to someone. So we were able to capture feedback that way as well online. And maybe somebody just wanted some more time to think about it. I had some people come up to me and say they wanted to go home and think about it. So that's good too. We also had the Sheridan Green landing page on the website, which of course is where you could submit online feedback. So potential use matrix. We've talked a lot about all of the moving parts and pieces of this, and the dimensions that one would need to consider to come to a good outcome. There's the neighborhood desires for compatibility, a positive impact on the community, being good fiscal stewards, understanding the risk of the city implementing something, what risk is there, understanding risk with a private partner. We did have some private entities who solicited interest in the site, and we solicited interest from them. And that was good, so we need to assess that. There's also the timing, which is really important. We had some proposals where they wouldn't be able to start occupying the building until 2025. So there were all different factors we needed to consider. And finally, most important, I think, the ability to perform. So it's one thing to receive a proposal, or even whether that's private or the city's proposal. If it can't be executed, it's not really worth a whole lot. It's just going to be a nice idea on a piece of paper that's going to sit on a shelf. So we wanted something that was realistic as well. So we, to solicit private interest, we posted in the Westminster Window, the Denver Post. We also had 3 public use concepts we developed based on initial feedback of that ice cream social. And we also received an unsolicited, before we even posted, there was a little bit of interest in the site from the Rocky Mountain Presbyterian Church, who offered to purchase the property. So that was one of the concepts that's been moving through the process. We also had 2 more concepts show up, and we were able to share those at the October 10th public meeting. So we had the Revolution ABA Learning Center, and we had the Bell Swan Children's Center, which was a temporary use as they construct their new facility. So a temporary lease starting in 2025. Revolution ABA Learning Center is a nonprofit child-centered learning center for children with special needs that currently operates in a home-based model. And they were interested in a lease or a sale. So based on that 10-10 public meeting, these are the updated community feedback response numbers from the written surveys as well as the online. We have updated some of this information. So let's start with concept number 1, which was the city community center. And we do have a notation there. As I noted, it's very close to City Park Rec Center, so there is a real concern from my colleagues in Parks and Rec that there might be a lot of duplication of services, and they are going through the parks visioning process now. So there's a lot to think about there, not least of which is the capital costs. So just based on some of the recent renovations that have been done for Swim and Fit or City Park Rec itself, the estimates for, so not just doing the system upgrades, 5 to 7 million, which you'd need to do to operate a city-owned community center and have children in there. We'd have to put fire suppression, ADA, all that. But it's 10 to 15 million to put the stuff into the building, the fixtures, the equipment, what are people gonna use, where are they gonna sit, where are they gonna do their crafts, all of that, and reconfiguring the building from, things as mundane as child-sized toilets to adult-sized toilets and everything in between. That costs a lot of money to have a really high-class, high-quality recreational center, which this community, that's our community standard, is to do things very well. So there's an estimate there that was not provided in previous information. We dug further into that, again, based on real-world experience with renovations of existing city facilities. And then the operating costs have not changed significantly from the last time we presented. Again, that community feedback support is strong, 74%. But again, we have to balance things with our resources and whether or not this is the right decision for 10 to 15 million, could be $20 million after system upgrades, or whether or not there's a higher priority somewhere in the city for that. That's just some different factors we want to lay out there for you as you make your decision. Second concept was Rocky Mountain Presbyterian Church. We have talked about this one before. They were offering to purchase the site. We have not gotten into any sort of extensive negotiations. We have done some, but, you know, in all honesty, there hasn't been positive community support for that. You can see it's the lowest of all of those choices. It was the lowest prior to this meeting. And so we want to honor that, of course, and didn't go any further with them on that, but I would say that they made an offer to us to purchase with a purchase price that's, you know, confidential right now, but that came in before we had the building inspection and knew all those systems. So I would just tell you, eyes wide open, I would imagine that knowing now the cost of those systems renovations, it would most likely be reflected in the sales price, which means a reduction, probably, definitely, in what they've potentially offered to us already. So, but again, not a lot of support, and there is concern in the neighborhood. We've heard consistently about traffic and increased traffic there. And also, a very important, really sensitive topic is that loss of the playground there and access to the swings and the jungle gym and all of the things that parents living in that neighborhood are used to using on a daily, weekly basis. And that's where they gather and connect as parents. So losing that, or maybe having restricted access to those amenities, is a real concern. And I want to share with you that I've heard that loud and clear through emails from citizens and through the public meetings that we've been through. That's been really consistent, that there is a concern. There's also a concern that I'm hearing about loss of city ownership. There's a real fear that there might be a potential, what if demographics change and more young families move in as the neighborhood, you know, goes through its life cycle. You know, there might be a need for a school again. And I would say, you know, if the city is in possession of the property and doesn't sell it, obviously that's easier for us to strike a deal, just like the city did in 1988 or 86 when they made the deal with the school district and donated the land with that reverter provision. So whoever did that was smart to put in the reverter. Now we have it back, and it just leaves options open for you into the future, right? So you can say, if we own the property, if the school district at some point in the future, 10, 15 years, needed a school site, there might be one there. That would be a decision for this body, of course, but I just want to share that because those were some of those major strong themes that we've heard from the residents and the families. There is the concern about city losing control of the property and traffic and losing access to that playground. So those concepts are not reflected in this chart, which we tried to be very black and white with this and apples to apples, but those are definitely some pieces of information that I think are important for you to know. And 3 is the park expansion. So that is the staff recommendation. It has the lowest traffic impacts, of course. Most people in the neighborhood will walk there. And it's not a regional park, so you're not going to be really pulling people from other areas like you would at Stanley Lake or something like that. It's for the neighborhood, by the neighborhood. And the estimates right now, so there has been a change that I want to walk you through from the last time we presented. The demolition costs did increase. We got better estimates, and we actually, thanks to David Richards, who's in Public Works, he did a phenomenal job. I want to give him a shout out because he found almost an identical building that was demolished recently by North Glen, and they had all of their bids. So he requested copies of those bids. So we were able to see real data in the market of very similar buildings, similar age, similar circumstances, similar construction, of what that cost was. So that cost, they got 9 bids, 9 qualifying bids. They ranged from $500,000 to demo to $2 million to demo. But the average was 1.7. So I really think the 500,000 was an outlier. I don't know what they were doing. They had a good special going on, but it seems, if you take that one out, take the outlier out, the average was, a good estimate was 1.7 million, and that's recently, like in the past 6 months, a bid that went out in this market. So I think that's great information to have. And again, kudos to David for getting that and running that down. And so what the good news is, while the price may have gone up from 700 to 900,000, we were thinking for a demo, it's gone up a lot. But what has been interesting in this process is the collaboration of Public Works and thinking about the demolition and the timing and the permitting and the preparation for that. And PRNL, who we have all gotten together as a Tiger team, and again, collaborating on a full Gantt charts of how would this thing map out the process. And we originally had in here about 1.5 million for basic revegetation is what we called it. Basically, it's make sure it doesn't turn into a mud pit where the school was. We want to just have green grass and swing sets and things like that. Very basic, while we thought we'd be waiting for the visioning process compatible with the park's vision plan, the community charrettes that need to occur. But what's happened is we found what dovetails nicely is while the demolition prep, and there's a lot of preparation with the state. It's a long timeline. A lot of those things are out of our control because there's about 1 or 2 people at the state that do these permits, and they're all over the place. So just giving you a realistic time frame. We have the demolition time, but that also gives time for this visioning process and community charrettes on what they want to see at the park simultaneously. So what we found is when we matched up timing, they will complete demolition and be ready for something. And what we initially thought when we presented to you in September was that it would be some sort of stopgap, minimal revegetation of the site so it looks pretty. But what we can do is actually, we think we will be completed with the visioning and the planning and park planning and all of that. It marches right in line with the demo timeline, which became longer than we thought it would be. And you don't have to do the basic revegetation. So what we've got is a demolition and then 2 million, but that 2 million funds the beginning of the final park design. So you're not having to do an interim step. So we've eliminated a step, if that makes sense. So we're going from demolition simultaneous with planning to right into, the building's scraped, it's clean, we're ready to go, and parks can come in and create the park that's been visioned. So, it actually ends up being less money. The demolition was more, but now because we're not doing that basic revegetation, take that money out and put it towards the final product, which makes more sense to me anyway. And the timing worked out. So that was a pleasant surprise. And I also want to point out, we had estimated for that basic revegetation, again, just grass, nice grass, irrigated, that maintenance would be about $20,000 a year. That's what we had said during the last meeting in September. With the final park, whatever that looks like, there's obviously an increased cost there because there's going to be something that's going to be maintained. Either they're a pavilion or, enhanced playground equipment. I don't know what that is, and I don't want to speculate because it's the community's decision. But that would cost more. So we've increased the annual maintenance. That always would have increased once you did the final park. It's just coming sooner than the 20,000 that we had originally anticipated for annual maintenance for a very basic lawn. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And we saw an increase in support from community feedback. So this, it was at about 51% support, or, number one, but now it's up to 60% are in support and 21% are opposed. There was a lot of neutral last time. We had about 40% of people kind of, I guess, well, maybe, but they've really moved, and we saw a significant movement to support. And I think that that's had a lot to do with the importance, again, of traffic, of city ownership, of doing something and not letting something sit there for a year, 2, 3, while we get the funds or the plans or the partners or whatever it is together. And I think that's also because it's so important. That's such a important community gathering place for them. There really are strong feelings about losing access again to the playground. And I want to also say with this, we've also programmed into an appropriation if this body agrees with staff recommendation. We would need about $72,000 to bring the swings back up to code. For safety reasons, a couple of them were removed by our playground maintenance folks, but we want to put those back and improve the ones that are there. We also want to immediately resurface the tennis courts and get those cleaned up.
Hallelujah.
Yes. Because they're in rough shape.
They've been an eyesore for 5 years.
Yes. Yes, so we're proud of that recommendation. We think that'll make a big difference. And then to let the community know and communicate again about how we're moving forward. When are these community engagement process meetings going to start with PRL? And keeping them informed about the demo permitting process, the deconstruction timeline, and construction timeline for the new park. So that was park expansion option. And 4 was Revolution ABA Learning Centers. There wasn't a majority support for this item. They are still interested in the site, and they have toured again the building. There's a lot of unknowns there still, whether leasing, buying at the end of the lease, the source of funds for these repairs. But at the end of the day, like I said, those major system repairs need to get made. And whether it's a lease, I'm going to tell you that cost is going to be amortized into the lease payments or very small lease payments made. But at the end of the day, somebody still has to pay for those improvements up front. So that's still something to consider. There was concern again about losing access to the playground, traffic, and having a private user occupying a once public space in their community. So with that, again, just a summary of what I've talked about today. I want to emphasize there are some changes in that demo price. It went up. Park design costs, remained, we're skipping the interim step. So we're saving the money that would have been spent, that 1 to 1.5 million on basic revegetation and irrigation system, and jumping right to park design concurrent with demolition permitting and action, and allowing us to go straight into a timeline of demo. The community will see action there, and then going into park design and park construction. And again, there's a lot of really cool ideas that have come out of these community meetings in terms of how to honor Sheridan Green with the new park, whether it's, build a boardwalk shaped like an S, have a little gator statue out there, something to honor that school and all of the kids and families that were involved in it. And finally, an ASAP on replacing those swing sets removed due to safety concerns and needed repairs to the existing tennis courts. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and the team is here as well.
Mayor Pro Tem?
If none of this happened, what would happen with all that park stuff that's not being taken care of? I say that kind of tongue in cheek because to me, it gets frustrating that this is stuff we should be taking care of as a city anyway. And so for it to be part of my decision process in this is a frustrating thought because it should be being taken care of.
We have Tomas Herrera-Mischler, Parks and Recreation Director.
Can you repeat the question, please?
I'm just curious, if this weren't to happen, what were the plans to maintain this property? We heard about tennis courts and other swings that had to be removed because they weren't safe. I mean, this stuff should be being taken care of anyway, so I'm frustrated to hear that as a point of decision when really, what was the plan to take care of any of that anyway?
Well, so the playground belonged, past tense, to the school district. And so as soon as we took ownership of the property, we had our playground inspector go out, and he found that the equipment, the original equipment when the school was built, is in very poor condition. Some of it needed to be addressed immediately because of safety, and then the newer equipment was in great condition.
With the tennis courts, those
The
aren't-
tennis court is overdue for reconstruction. We do have a major court reconstruction project underway throughout the city. And that was, actually, it was on our schedule to be done next year. And then we waited, this opportunity to acquire the school came along. And so we held off on that until we could do some planning with the community.
So it's already budgeted.
Yeah.
You talked about the distance from City Park to this, and like what's the right distance? Because if I do, we just approved a pretty substantial park in the downtown. Downtown from City Park is 2.3 miles. The Sheridan Green from City Park is 1.9 miles. That's not substantially different. So what's the right distance that we want to have apart from these kind of facilities?
Well, the goal that we've set is a half-mile walk for everyone in the city to a park or to a recreational resource. That's kind of a standard that a lot of people are adhering to these days. I think it's a good standard. We have about 85% of our population is within walking distance to a park resource right now. So we're pretty close. I think that's a pretty good measure.
When you talk about the 10 to 15 million for, you had, if you could go back to the, there you go. You have 10 to 15 million for renovations. What is that based on? Like renovations, like you have the 5 to 7 million for system upgrades and repairs. The 10 to 15 million in renovations, is that if we made substantial changes to meet some sort of things that we would want to do to the building? Are those necessary renovations? What do renovations entail?
We, luckily, we have the recent work that's underway at the Swim and Fit right now, so we have very, very up-to-date cost estimates for this kind of work. It's a similar project in terms of addressing ADA, addressing all these different issues, that updating systems, and that was $200 a square foot. So we use that as our guideline for looking at this this structure and how much it would cost to renovate that.
So would it be fair to guess that that's, well, it sounds like it is kind of a guess off of what we did with the other one, because I have to imagine programming would weigh into what the actual costs are gonna be as far as what you used it for.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you did simple, say, HVAC and some ADA and stuff and left classrooms in place and used those rooms, it's probably different than if you added a theater component or something like that.
Yeah, that would add considerably to the cost, but, you're very right about the programmatic plan for the building would have a real impact on the FF&E, the fixtures, furniture, and equipment that would be necessary.
I don't have any other questions at this point.
Okay, I had sent some questions, I have a few extra. I'm sorry I didn't read the email back. I would like, I had asked about just understanding the scope of the improvements a little bit better, so the questioning that, one, what you talked about today or this evening, and Mayor Pro Tem's questions were helpful. I was just wondering, are there options to not just carte blanche utilize the whole building? Or like if we, if there's the gym and or just certain elements of the building that would still be useful for our community? Have we looked at that?
Sure, so, in the called Tiger Team that we had of Public Works and Facilities and PRL and everyone, We did, that idea came up, you know, what if we just saved a portion of the building, say half the building, and maybe it's that half that includes, the gym, for example, that could be reused. The problem that facilities saw with that is, you know, the building wasn't designed to be parceled up like that. It would take probably extensive amount of engineering, architecture expenses to understand structurally where we could part the building, and then you've got the system. So, depending on how you divide up a building, think about this building we're in now, I mean, it's much larger, but, you know, the geothermal heating's over here, and the electrical box is over there, and the plumbing comes in over here. So it would be a lot of movement and reconstruction, reconfiguring that would actually, when we were just spitballing, what would that look like, what would that cost? You take half the demo cost, but then the incremental savings of not doing a roof for the whole building, or electric, or plumbing, or ADA, those, it's not commensurate with the reduction in the building size. There's still some fixed costs associated with that. So where we got to, we spent about one of our meetings talking about that, you know, and said, it just seems like it doesn't make sense because the cost of still having to do those systems might be a little bit smaller, but there's also all these unknowns about movement of where different utilities come into the building would have to be changed and so forth. So we didn't pursue it any further than that as a staff. And we tried to just run down those 4 options as much as we could that council had instructed us on the 10th to come back to the community with. So, yeah, I can tell you, we did think about it. Our back of the envelope was, you're not really saving a lot of money, you're gonna still have to spend a lot of money, and it opens up a lot of unknowns. And then you're still back to, you'd have to pay for the interior retrofitting, the staff to run the building and the FTEs and all of that. So we didn't pursue it any further.
Okay. My second question was, have we given the reuse opportunity enough time to work out a deal for all or a portion of the building? It seems like, yes, it's not well understood what ABA would want to do or be able to do. Just kind of, it does take time, and we had a pretty short, how long was the request out again for offers?
It was out for at least a month or so, and we actually, you know, had been, it was posted on our website for much longer, that we were soliciting for ideas and feedback. I would say going back to March, April timeframe. So the word was out there, that's how, you know, Rocky Mountain Presbyterian Church knew to submit an unsolicited request before we even published the ads. We wanted to provide more, and we also got some other solicitations, one from affordable housing, one from senior affordable housing developer that we've, since we're talking with them on some different sites throughout the community, because it was clear from some of that initial feedback that more housing or multifamily housing was not something the neighborhood was excited about. So those are still being worked with, but just not at that site. And, you know, the initial feedback has not been positive, and I'm also not sure on the timing. So to take more time away from a pathway that we see as executable that can bring success, to bet on a lease option of something for, you know, an unproven model, I would say your risk would be pretty high.
Okay, so my third question is, what is the site currently designated?
Public, quasi-public.
Okay, and the park adjacent to it is park space?
Park.
What would be the plan then with respect to the designation? Would you change the designation?
No, we would not have to change a comp plan designation, and if you move forward with the park plan, The PDP, the preliminary development plan and the official development plan for Sheridan Green PUD designates a site for a school and park use. So, if we continue to maintain it as a park, you wouldn't even need to do an ODP, PDP amendment of any kind. You can just go.
Okay, and we wouldn't, my thought is more not changing it to anything, so that we'd retain the ability to utilize it for some other type of public, quasi-public use
Mhm.
in the future, if that were ever a need. Okay, I did ask about just better understanding how this site could or not play into our overall vision for Parks and Recreation. I know that's a time component. I'm not overly fond of rushing into decisions when we don't have to, so I was just curious. I know there's things to weigh. I understand that. So just,
Yeah,
could this be integrated in that?
The timing's really quite fortuitous because we're engaged right now in the vision plan, and then there's some time, quite a bit of time involved in getting all of the demolition set up, and so to me, it seems like we'll be able to then flow right into concurrent planning with the community around what the improvements are possible, desired for that part of the park expansion. So I think it's really quite, it's gonna flow very nicely.
And I just had a few other questions on, sorry, just a few other questions kind of on, around this table. One, can you clarify for ABA, are they talking about a $3 to $4 million additional upgrade to what we might?
No, so there's a quirk here in that, I know this sounds wild, but because it would be a school use to a school use, you wouldn't be triggering the sprinkler upgrades and potentially some of the ADA, though with their clientele, they're probably gonna wanna do some ADA retrofitting, I'm just guessing. So, I know that sounds counterintuitive.
It's run faster or something? Like, what
Sounds
is it?
counterintuitive, but you wouldn't need a sprinkler system for a school, but because that's the existing use, it's not triggering
Okay,
the
yeah.
update for codes.
Okay, sorry, I only have a couple more questions. The park maintenance and operation, the 65 to 75K on your third row, is that in addition to what you already would anticipate or do maintain the existing park with?
That would be in addition to what we currently spend on maintaining the existing park.
And finally, we listed the traffic, and we've noted the traffic as an issue. I'm just curious, what was the traffic with the school in
So,
operation?
I would say it would be similar to that school listing there for Revolution ABA. It's very rough, because we don't have exact uses and exact square footages for that. So we tried to do our best. And thank you to Seth Plass and Heath Klein for helping with the ITE information. That's our best guess on what that was. And asking, and I asked the same question, what would you have estimated that a school would have been? Probably higher than that 2,937 trip number.
It used to be walk-in, and we all walked there.
Yes.
And as the years went by and safety issues, you can see the cars parked from the roundabout, the little circle areas, the bus area, from the front door clear to 110th and then up 110th and on both sides of the street,
It's very different.
coming and going, and the flip over of kindergarten at noon.
Thank you. Okay, those are my questions, thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Baker?
In your plan, it said 1.7 for the demo and 2 million for park design. What would it cost to really complete the design?
Well, the design and we're estimating it's $2 to $2.5 million for design and improvements. So it's, that's an all-in number.
Okay. Are we gonna do that, design in-house?
No, we will contract that out to one of our landscape architecture on-call design firms.
And how much would that be?
I'll have to get back to you on that, sir.
Thank you.
Counselor Azadi, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to first of all big thanks to staff. I have a serious question. It sounds like it's not, but it's a serious one. This project, in my opinion, since I've been on council, it seems like it's the one project that has the most amount of community feedback that we've actually garnered. Is that true?
Sir, I don't know. I think probably Andy, Lay, or someone in communications might be better, but we can get you that information.
And I say, so whether or not it's true, it's just been a lot, right? And that's a good thing. I think we're moving in the right direction, and this kind of project kind of dictates us to ask the community what they want, and they've spoken. And I just want to thank you guys for such a thorough process and looking at all the factors of the decision that we need to make here. I think you've taken such a thorough amount of due diligence to getting to where you are, and I just wanted to thank you for that. That's all.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of everybody, I appreciate that.
No questions.
Counselor Emmons? My questions are, because I sat on the school board, and I know they have, because they passed the bond issue that we're all paying into, and obviously the school board chose not to put any money towards this school, knowing it was going to close, and they had to have known it for several years, because the way the description is, I don't know what kind of conditions these kids have been in the last 2 to 3 years. But there is money that the community as a whole and Jefferson County as a whole voted on, and that bond money can only do certain things. Have you ever had conversation with them to see if, since they knowingly left it with no roof, the heating and electrical and all of the things listed that weren't done, they can only use that money for those kinds of things. They're closing 16 schools. We're paying for that bond and have very little to show for it. So my big question is, with the partnership with them, do they have any money to help us if that would be the choice?
Mayor, great question. Clearly, you want to make sure that you get your portion of what you've contributed to any sort of bond issuance, especially if that is what it was discussed previously. I think I would like to investigate that with potentially Mr. Dorr, Mr. Lindsay, and understand the financials of where that bond money has gone, where it will go. And we can certainly explore that. I don't have an answer for you tonight, but we can investigate that.
I know that they poured a ton into that gymnasium, which I agree. If we could save that, at least, we don't have gymnasiums a dime a dozen to use. And when I wrote about the agreements we have with some of our other school districts, sort of was poo-pooed that, well, yeah, we have these IGAs, but we can't do anything with them when we don't use them, and we own this one. And so my question is, how can we use it? And I heard all of the discussion about what it might or might not take, but walking in there, not having seen the renovation that had been done there, to just blow it up. It just seems like more money down the drain. But anyway, that's my angst, is the school district has had that money and they chose to do nothing for that school. And when I hear all of your guys' take on it, I truly question how they could have the kids within that school building for the last 2 to 3 years. But that's all I have.
Thank you.
Anybody want to give some direction to staff?
Well, I'm for moving ahead,
And doing what?
moving ahead with the staff recommendation.
I actually like option 1 to figure out a way to use the building. I don't like staff recommendation.
I agree with the staff recommendation.
Counselor Zadi?
Staff recommendation.
Oh, God, I'm still thinking.
I'm still thinking too. I can give my thoughts as far as, there's not really much more that we can ask from the public. We've heard them 3-4 different times, plus the last almost 6 months through engagement on our website and our social media channels. I feel like we have some answers through our surveys that we provided. It's either a community center, option 1, or an option 2 is staff recommendation. I'm two ways about it. For a community center, I agree. I think it will split services. It's hard to fill classes, hard to fill classrooms as is. And so whether it's adult to students, at youth age. And so that's a concern for me, purely from a business perspective. When you're maximizing taxpayer dollars, it's not efficient to duplicate services in that manner. And so, which leads me then to focus on expanding the park, which is a solid option that the community had wanted and wants. And so, my concern with that, though, is that we are letting go of, and this is probably a personal tie, to be honest, a personal bias, is that we are letting go of a piece of the community that each of us have contributed to for several decades. And so that's also a concern to me, is that, are we doing a wash here? Is that we've just replaced something that we're paying for something else. And so that's where I'm kind of two ways about it. If I had to make a decision, I'd lean with the park recommendation. I'd hate to see Sheridan Green go, though. So I would want to see how it's commemorated. But if we're truly talking about a city collectively and maximizing our dollars the best way we know how, it'd be option 2.
Yeah, I mean, Counselor Emmons kind of spoke a lot of the same thoughts that I have with respect. I hate letting go of a building. It's hard, it's not that old, it's not that decrepit. I think to the point of duplication of services, and also you're making me think of some of the buildings that we currently have that we haven't been able to put money into. It's a struggle. I certainly would love it if we dialed up our school partners and they said, "Oh yeah, I forgot about this wallet we have back here." That would be lovely. and still, I'd love to hear like, oh yeah, this building is designed such that you could cleave off these things and maintain a gym or something. And I know staff has already thought a lot about this. That's just, it's just hard to say, take down a whole building. The one good thing is that there is at least some good community support. It's not, the ideal for them. I mean, you live in the neighborhood, so I kind of want to hear from you the most, but I could get behind the staff. So, I mean, it's not a bad recommendation, so I don't want to make it sound like it is. I just, it's hard. It's hard.
Counselor Big?
Being as there is this doubt, because I agree with you, it's a waste. To knock the building down is just a colossal waste of public resources. So maybe we should defer to the next council. I mean, they will take their jobs in 2 weeks, and they would only delay, the decision a month. And they're gonna be the ones accountable for it, not us.
They could bring it back. That's under their purview. But I'm not, it was presented to council now, and I'm charged with making a decision now, and I sit here now.
I know community talked about like a rec center stuff. Did we ever talk about does fire need training areas? Like, the only training area I know is across the street with the 2 rooms upstairs. Did anybody ever discuss that for the use?
Mayor, there are some, in additional schools, there are some conversations about fire training, about police training, nothing definitive at this point, but those conversations have been going on between Jeffco Public Schools and some of the, entities that provide that kind of service. But that's not something that we've looked at specifically here that I'm aware of.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if I could.
Yeah.
We also got feedback from police and fire that they didn't prefer this location because they know they're going to be noisy and loud and flashbangs and all kinds of stuff like that. So they were not too keen on the site.
And I didn't mean that kind of training, but
Okay.
even seated training that they have to go through. Sometimes those rooms are booked and we don't have other places. None of the firehouses have a big enough conference room to bring people together. So I don't know if there was ever those discussions. I know that there was with rec center stuff that people were focused on, but we have other people needing conference rooms and gathering rooms, which then, when they aren't being used for them, community, if they needed the space. I just don't know if those conversations ever happened.
And I would just offer, Mayor, you've got rec centers that all have large meeting facilities, and we use them quite regularly. And so, if there's something that's not available in, the public safety center across the street, you can go to City Park, you can go to Westview, for example. Libraries have large training areas too, College Hill, for example, where you can do classroom instruction. And, our leadership team uses those facilities because, the multipurpose room, is all we have in this building that's large enough for something like that. So we go other places too. The other thing that I would just comment on, your concerns about, there's Jeffco money out there, that was gathered to fix schools. Whether it was gathered to fix Sheridan Green specifically, I don't know the history on that. But if you remember, they're closing schools because of school populations going down, but more importantly, the cost of maintaining what they've got has gone up significantly. And so I'm very, very confident that they have, very consistent and dedicated plans for whatever savings they had for future, allocations against Sheridan Green for capital improvements, they figured out what other schools that they're gonna be putting that money into.
Well, if you've heard the superintendent ever talk, she has said some part of the opposite of all that. That's the reason I just question,
Okay.
have we had that conversation? Because, well, we'll be paying it until it's paid off, the whole thing, whether it goes to Sheridan Green. They didn't close WIT, because they have put millions and millions of dollars into it. It was an IB program, and so they have chosen not to do anything with that right now, because they did put some big bucks into that. Mayor Pro Tem?
I just wanted to make a point for future. I mean, we've talked about how great it is to have this reverter clause in there. I'm not sure I agree, because if all we're gonna do is then have to pay for demolition of a property that we're gonna get back and there's no value to it. I mean, maybe there's value to the park, but I mean, I'm not seeing the value. I'm seeing a colossal, as Councilor Baker said, waste of taxpayer money in a building that, frankly, if I look at it, I have to imagine there's gotta be some sort of use than just tearing it down, and that's my frustration with it. But, you know, forward thinking, I don't know how great that reverter clause really is.
Councilor Baker?
As I remember, on the capital wish list, you know, the capital project wish list that you presented to council, one of those things was a fire administration building, correct?
That's correct.
Wasn't that like $30 million or something?
It's actually, it's an expansion of fire station number 4. So what the fire department is envisioning is a replacement fire station number 4, where there are administrative offices for fire leadership. Would not be a significant increase over, I would imagine, over a basic fire station. You're talking about a place for the chief and the folks that are housed over here on the first floor. Because frankly, the police department, you know, has grown to a point where they could consume that building over there quite easily. And so that's something that, you know, a future council decision will have to be made about, do we want to replace fire station number 4? And if we do we want to add on administrative offices for the current space, if you will, that the fire admin occupies over here at the PSC? Because they occupy a very small portion of that building in retrospect to the rest of the building with the PD.
And isn't new building in the neighborhood of $1,000 to $1,500 a square foot?
Yeah, I don't know. Public Works, any perspective on that? City engineer, anybody? Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't have a good answer for that.
You've got your 4 votes for option 3.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, council. Thank you. We'll get working on that. Thank you, staff. Good. Okay, Mayor, the next one is this was when we will do the executive session for the WIDA agenda, which is on the back.
We have reason for executive session?
Thank you. There are actually 2 executive sessions agendized tonight. One is for WIDA, and it is an executive session pursuant to Section 111.3C2 of the Westminster Municipal Code and Section 246402.4A of Colorado Revised Statutes for the purpose of discussing the repurchase of Lot 4, Block 8 in Westminster.
I will poll council and ask if you're willing to go into executive session and that you will keep what's said there confidential. Councilor Zimmer?
Rich Seymour, yes.
Lindsay Emmons, yes.
Bruce Baker, yes?
Dave DeMai, yes.
Sarah Nermella, yes.
Nancy McNally, yes.
And Mayor, if I could, before we adjourn the public study session.
Councilor Azadi?
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Zadi.
Toby, is that a yes?
Thank you. Apologies, Counselor. Before we adjourn the study session, I would ask if Council would be willing to vote on the second executive session of the evening. That way, once we conclude the WIDA exec session, Council can roll into its exec session. The Council study session that's proposed for tonight is an executive session discussion of a personnel matter, the annual review feedback for the city manager, and that will be convened pursuant to Westminster Municipal Code Section 111.3C1 and Colorado Revised Statute 246402.4F1.
I will poll the council again if you're willing to go into executive session and hold whatever's said there as confidential.
Rich Seymour, yes.
Lindsay Emmons, yes.
Bruce Baker, yes?
Dave DeMai, yes.
Sarah Nermella, yes.
Nancy McNally, yes. Obi Izadi, or Counselor Izadi, sorry.
Obi, is that a yes?
Thank you, Mayor. And so at this time, Mayor, if you want to conclude the public portion of tonight's study session, we can then end the recording and the live stream and begin an executive session recording for the winter study session, exec session title.
It is 7:50 and the study session is closed.
Counselor Azadi, can you go to the second link that we sent you, please?